And we're pretty excited today to be doing the 7 charms that activate our magnetic personality and enable us to magnetize our charm. And how fantastic is that going to be? And so we're just chatting a little bit here before we go to Facebook Live, because soon we shall be doing that. And we're so grateful to be joined here by a number of you already, and soon we shall be hitting the Facebook Live world, which is very, very exciting and massive for us and everything. So I think some of you guys may know, most of us have been so incredibly touched and affected by what Mynoo has brought us for the last couple of years, even starting during COVID. And what have we learned? How have we been inspired? And we have really been brought to new places in our community. I feel like I'm friends with a lot of you guys out there, even though I've never met you. And so I'm pretty excited to be hosting this 104th Pearl of Wisdom. I'm absolutely amazed to realize that that is what's happening. And so we are all together now. I think Facebook Live has joined us. And so I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sunny Chase, and I'm the host of a show on ABC called Solutionary Sundays. And I am hosting us today. I'm your backup singer guide for the day, or I'm actually Mynoo Maryel's backup singer. And we are going to be going into our 104th Pearl of Wisdom, 2-year anniversary today, guys. Our 2-year anniversary, and 104, what an auspicious number that is. And we are going to be, Mynoo actually is going to be sharing with us the 7 charms that activate our magnetic personality and enable us to magnetize the perfect resources toward whatever we are resolving and we are enjoying our journey indeed. And we're enjoying our journey into JEGO, as we know, joy, ease, grace, and omnipresent. And Mynoo Maryel, I think, is going to get right to it, because we have a big night tonight and a lot to get to. So welcome, welcome, everyone. And thank you for participating. And Mynoo, bring us into the charms. We are ready. We are warmed up.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's like that crystal ball, it starts getting these, sparks of lightning inside it as we go into this particular Pearl of Wisdom. It is exciting, right? It's the 2nd year anniversary of the Pearl of Wisdom. I remember when we began and Catherine saying, oh my God, that's like, wow, this is going to last a long time. And here we are. Thank you, Sunny, for hosting.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's begin. Okay, hello everyone. I'm here in Dubai right now and ready to disarm or arm you with the charms that really activate your magnetic personality. So first of all, let's just think about what is magnetic. Let's look at what's magnetic itself. When we describe someone as or something as magnetic, what do we actually mean? We often are talking about something that's really beautiful, that's dignified, that's impressive, that has a draw to you. You can talk about beautiful. It doesn't mean it's magnetic. But when you talk about something magnetic, it's beautiful and it draws you in. So each of these individually beautiful, dignified, or impressive are pretty amazing in their own right. When they come together, they become like a magnet attracting. And just like a magnet doesn't just attract anything and everything, it attracts the iron or iron filings to it. Magnetic magnetizes the resources that are perfectly in tune with whatever it is that you are resolved about. And we've actually done a whole Pearl of Wisdom on results. So I won't go into that right now. But that's really what a magnetic personality actually means. You don't have to, be dressed a certain way. You don't have to speak a certain way. You don't have to have a particular level of qualification as such. You can be magnetic no matter what. And that is really what this Pearl of Wisdom's teachings are about. When you learn how to activate those charms so you are able to magnetize. When I started looking at this, I had a pretty amazing experience when I met Amma. Amma is also referred to as India's hugging saint. She's like a very loving sort of mother-like personality. And originates from an extremely impoverished family in South India, in Kerala, to such an extent that, from what I've heard, I don't know for sure, but from what I've heard, there was no space for her to sleep at home. She would be sleeping in the cowshed, and to keep herself from feeling the discomfort in the cowshed, she would sing songs. They were called bhajans or hymns, if you like, to Lord Krishna. And she would many of them she had made up herself, and she would just sing them like a little girl, as a little girl. And that started magnetizing people towards her. And she wasn't educated or anything. So really what she could offer them was a hug. And it was a hug of just simply pure love. And that's how it all began. It's not that she had money. It's not that she had clothes. It's not that she had education or words of wisdom or anything like that. She was simply in her truth and showing up as in her truth. And as we go through and look at some of these charms, we will start to see how they were so present in her demeanor, in her way of being. And that is what became magnetic. And it continues to magnetize the resources that she requires, or that she has become intentional about. The resources are simply magnetized to her. Only last year, she opened Asia's largest hospital, completely free hospital, very close to where I live in north of India. It is the largest hospital. It's huge. To build that hospital, and the Prime Minister who also of India had gone to inaugurate that hospital. It was huge, and that's what I really mean by magnetic. If there is any disaster that occurs anywhere in the world, her institution is one of the first ones that usually goes in with aid. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of aid that goes from her institution. So the good news is magnetic can be these 7 charms of magnetic. As I walk you through them, they are available to everyone. They are available to every living thing, not just humans. Humans disconnect from that using our thoughts as a way of disconnecting, and our thoughts applied to past experience and associations or future anxieties and worries. That disconnects us from our own magnetism. And how does it disconnect us from our own magnetism? It actually gets us to suppress what we are intentional about as a soul being when we chose to have this human experience. And that's really what occurs, and that starts to disconnect us. So it was very interesting for me to work in preparing for this Pearl of Wisdom. As I started going through these charms, I also saw that they are so easily accessible to anyone in any strata of society. But it all begins with, a knowing that you are worthy. Many of you have heard me talk about this before. We are born with three things. We are born with choice. We are born with dignity. We are born with our own unique mastery that puts us at the source of our life. Choice is a modus operandi of being human. We are always choosing, even if we choose to make no choice, or we choose to give our choice over to someone else. Dignity is the honoring of our own worthiness. And from that space, we automatically honor it in others, all living things and the planet itself. Source mastery is a unique gift that we have amassed through various journeys of our soul that gives us our unique flair in relating to people. So these are our frequencies that are quite unique to us, and our magnetism is in perfect attunement to these frequencies of how we choose, what we recognize as our own worthiness, and what is our unique gift that puts us at the source of our life. And it is this aligning our magnetic personality to these frequencies gives us a very unique brand of beauty, of how we show up in our most dignified presence. And that is what becomes impressive. And that is what actually magnetizes. I also had the fortune of, through Sister Jenna, who is based in the US and is a part of the Brahma Kumari movement, I also have had the opportunity of spending several times with Dadi Janki, but she's recently left our planet, crossed over at 103 years of age. And I've had a chance of meeting her in London a few times. And then I also had a chance to visit her institution in Mount Abu in India. The institution in Mount Abu in India, so they have more than 93,000 people that make up their team in different parts of the world. And Dadi Janki was quite a short woman. And the first time I met her, we were only 25 of us. She comes into the room and she sits down at the head of the room. And we were all seated, and there's pin drop silence, 25 of us. And that was my first time. She just sits there and she's looking around the room, like as if she's making eye contact with each one of us. And this continued for about 10 minutes. Since it was the first time that I'd been there, it was extremely awkward to be just seated, because I didn't know what else to expect or what else was going to happen. It was like, when is something going to start? And then 10 minutes later, she then started speaking, and she spoke some amazing words of wisdom. It felt really beautiful. It touched all our hearts. And then the next time she came, my friend Gina, who's based in London, said, "Oh, Dadi Janki is coming. Would you like to come?" And I said, "Yes, sure." And this time the gathering was at the Royal Festival Hall. So it's got a few thousand people that are there seated in different layers of this amazing theater venue. So there we are across these 5 floors, and people are just coming in and coming in. It's completely full, lots and lots of noise with the humming of people talking to each other and stuff. And then, the lights sort of go dim and she arrives on the stage. Now, I was on the second floor because there were so many people, and she's like down below. I can see her. There are these big screens on either side where you can see her. And she comes and sits down. The moment she enters and sits down, that's it. It's completely silent. It feels like somebody larger than life is sitting there right in front of you. And you automatically shut up. You're in the presence of a master. Now, she was quite small, and she did exactly what she did when there were 25 of us. Looked around the room for 10 minutes, connecting to each and every person that was there. In her own way, she was, like really holographically connecting to everyone that was present there for 10 minutes. And prior to that, I was wondering how anyone would ever be able to hear anything. Would they ever shut up? There wasn't the usual sort of people that you would have to control the noise and the sounds, and there wasn't a particular protocol that you would have when you go and see a theater. So I was very curious, and lo and behold, it occurred. And looking at myself, I wanted to say to my friend, wow, there's such presence here. I wasn't in the spiritual awakened state. This goes way, way before and my journey began. But I didn't feel I wanted to say anything. I didn't feel I wanted to open my mouth. I had thoughts coming up, and all I could do was just hold my friend's hand a little tighter. And she knew she's experienced this many times before. And then 10 minutes later, she starts speaking. She only speaks for about 10, 15 minutes. Then we go into a meditation, and that was it. That was, I would say, was my first ever connection to a magnetic personality. Fast forward, several years later, 1918, I go to Mount Abu. At this point, she's 102 years old. 2019 is her 103rd birthday. And there are 37,000 people. That is the capacity of the room that she was in. And I happened to be towards the front row of the room, but looking behind, it was just oceans and oceans of people that were there. She comes up on the stage, this 102-year-old woman, and she stands up from her wheelchair, and this time she walks on either side of the stage, again making that same connection for 10 minutes, or maybe more, I don't know, but certainly 10 minutes. And there's complete silence. And it's as if she's now plugged into you, as if you're the only person she's talking to. And that's what would occur. It was this pearl of wisdom that I'm talking about. And as I talk about the charms, you will see how they are completely present. Fast forward to me, now fast forward to what occurred with me. And I'm talking about now, this is like 2019 itself, a little bit later in that year. I get invited to go to Goa. And there I am in Goa, and I meet the spiritual teacher. He has the ancient traditional school of the Gurukul. And I'm talking to him about de-desertification of India. It has 9 times more floods and 10 times more drought. Does not compute. There's a very particular reason why that is occurring, why desertification is spreading, and it's to do with the way we work with water. And I want to, create a World Dignity Forum water conclave. So I'm talking to him, and he says, look, tomorrow evening I have a function with my followers, and I would like to present you and your philosophy to that group. I didn't think anything of it. I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. I want to bring awareness to the fact that there is an anomaly here. And he said the chief minister is also going to be there from Goa, and his cabinet is going to be there. So it was like, okay, that's great. Let's do it. What I didn't realize was there would be there were about 27,000 people. So I go on the stage, and it's an ocean of people. I can't see the end of it. And there's an ocean of people all around me as well. The spread. And then it's my turn to go speak on the microphone. But before I did that, I sat, like he was talking about who is talking about me, who the guest is and why he's thought of bringing me there and stuff. And I decide to really, I literally like recall Dadi Janki. So in those 5-7 minutes where he was introducing me, I just sat in the front and I projected myself to the end of the row of people that I could not see. And I just visualized that I was spreading all around me, so that as I was spreading all around me, I was literally connecting at a cellular level to these people. There was several trillion is what I felt. I know now why, because we've got, each one of us is 124 trillion cells. And then having that projection out to all of these people, I then brought that connection back into my human body, just as I was walking to the microphone. And it was electrifying for everyone that was there. It was electrifying for me also, because it literally became this beautiful, electrifying exchange of energy communicated through a set of words. And that was the first time that I experienced consciously this cellular communication that I talk about, where I say I'm communicating to your cells. So you will get what you will get when you only focus on the mental concentration to pick up the words that I'm saying, but simply allow yourself to be, and you will receive the wisdom in layers, and it will start releasing as and when you're ready for it to be released, for it to be received by you, and for it to be acted by you. So I have seen implementing these charms for myself, and you can all work with this. It's accessible to everyone. The first charm that is activated, it's modest. Modest by itself, what does it actually mean? It's a humble state. You know, it's really with great humility, accepting your own merits, your own influence. And in that humility lies the power that frees you from egotism or boastfulness or pretensions. The modest charms frees you up from egotism, boastfulness, or great pretensions, or vanity of any kind. And, there's so much effort that we take in the context of freeing ourselves from this egotism, because that can be gripping. It gets you attached to certain ways of doing things. This egotism stuff. I'm just going to mute everyone. So you can imagine this is a very powerful charm. And all you have to do is choose to act on or activate or turn on this charm of modest. I mean, I recall Dadi Janki, the 103-year-old leader of the Brahma Kumaris. I mean, she was modest. When I first met her, she was wearing a beautiful white cotton sari, nothing major to speak of, but that's how she was dressed. And it was her charm, her magnetism was exuded through her presence. She didn't need to use words for the first 10 minutes while she was connecting with people. And what was she doing there? She was doing what I call as the dignitarian approach of honoring the worthiness of everyone that was there. She did own her own worthiness. She was completely modest as she showed up. The amazing thing about that institution, by the way, the Brahma Kumaris, this is phenomenal. You send her an email, within 2 days, you will get a response. And it won't just be an automated response. I mean, I don't know how many emails. Now, there's Dadi Janki who's taken over. She's exactly the same. You send her an email, within 2 days, you will get a response from her. And I've met her a few times, and she said, this is the most important thing I know when I would send emails in my desperate state. And I would be every few minutes, I would be looking for, is there a response? Is there a response? You know, the least I can do is just honor people. If that's all that I did was respond to people's emails without just like brushing them off or just giving them something standard to look at. That in itself is what I'm here to do. Pretty amazing, modest. When I showed up with the 23,000 people who I didn't know were there, thank God I didn't know, because I would have felt very intimidated and I would have really said, no, I really don't want to go and talk about it. But I didn't know how many people will be there. I thought it was a satsang, you know, so there'll be a few, maybe a few hundred people, maybe 1,000 or so. But I didn't realize how many there would be. Now, when I was faced with that, realizing, even when I was down before I got onto the stage, I thought there are more than 1,000 people here. It's only when I went up on the stage, which felt so high, that I realized, oh no, this is huge. Then I asked the person sitting next to me, how many people are here? And he said, oh, I think we were expecting 20,000. We have 27,000, 23, 27,000. So we are having to seat them behind the stage as well. Now, in that scenario, the only way for me to show up was with humility. The cumulative wisdom of all the people that were there was far, far, far greater than anything that I might have mentally thought about that I had. It anchored me in a state of humility. Really, it anchored me in a state of humility forever. And what I saw was, it is such a beautiful device. The modest charm is the best one to turn on. If you ever feel overwhelmed, if you ever feel, intimidated, just step into humility. Even if you're feeling overwhelmed by overthinking, step into humility, that you are able to have so many thoughts. And immediately the overthinking will start to clear. At that moment, with these 23,000 people, if I was to think about my own merits of talking about de-desertification, I was no expert at all. I just have a passion for addressing this issue. And yes, I had chosen to go meet some phenomenal solutionaries. I wasn't a solutionary on de-desertification myself. So if I thought about merits, my ego would want to feel super inflamed so that I can, with this superiority presence, want to demonstrate how good I was. And I didn't have the merits. That was completely, I knew that. But I did have a passion, So there was no vanity. There is no strength in egotism or vanity or boastfulness. And there is a disconnect from the truth of who you are when you show up with pretensions. And then you start going into a validation junkie syndrome, where you're desperately seeking validation for something that you deep down know you're not an expert in. So much more powerful, so much more easy to just activate the charm of modest and step into humility. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable. The second charm that gets activated, and it activates your magnetic personality. Each one of these, by the way, is whole and complete. A lot of the times when I do the 108 Pearls of Wisdom, The 7 that I talk about, you are meant to do it in sequence. Here you can do it in sequence, and you don't have to. You can start anywhere. Each one of them is whole and complete. The charm activates your magnetic personality. And that magnetic personality immediately gets to work and starts to magnetize the resources that are required for you to realize your resolve. The second one, the second charm that activates your magnetic personality is affable. Affable is being at ease, being pleasant, especially in a conversation. So we often use it in the form of an affable host, for example. Being at ease, pleasant, and conversing, coming from that space. Now, when you are at ease and you're able to very pleasantly and calmly be in communication, in any conversation, what is actually happening here? You become completely, fully present. What are you becoming present to? You become present to your whole and completeness. So in that space, there is no need to prove anything. There isn't any anxiety or worry about something that you may not have. Because you experience the whole and completeness, you immediately go into your source mastery, the third thing you're born with. You are stationed as a master. When you're present, those of you who've done the journey into miracles, who know about the source mastery work, you know when we uncovered your source mastery, you felt it in your body. You didn't need to say a word and people would have that experience of you in your mastery. And that is what happens when the charm of affable, it activates. And what it activates is your magnetic personality. So you can consciously choose to step into the affable state and activate this particular charm, knowing that the consequence of doing so immediately puts you in a space where you start magnetizing the perfect resources that are called for. You are at ease and with yourself. You are comfortable presencing your own presence, and you're comfortable in your presence, and hence a very unique type of pleasantness enters your communication. Hence the conversations become very beautiful, meaningful without actually having any meaning as such. So when I look at this, in just the examples that I talked about, that the talk on de-desertification and a few solutions that I had uncovered, I was so happily sharing the solutionaries that I had met and the solutions that they had created. And I was doing it in such a way that people, even there were ministers there from the government, if they wanted to implement any of those solutions, they would get to know enough about the solutionaries themselves that they could go look them up and ask them to come and support them. I had no desire for me to be the one that they come to. It was really about sincerely sharing that there is a solution out there. You don't have to feel that, your like Goa itself, which is a land rich in waters and has very good monsoon, and it also has as many forests and as it does have the ocean that surrounds it. The forests were actually drying up because aquifers were drying up. And I was able to share the stories, and each one was able to relate to those stories as well. The beautiful thing about affable charm is this is the key to freeing you from egotism or boastfulness. just frees you from that, because you can be as vulnerable as you require to be, as you feel that vulnerability flows through you. And vulnerability is a key to freedom. Freedom from having to be a certain way. Freedom from needing to communicate a certain thing. I did not need to pretend to be the expert. I was not. I was able to declare that I am not the expert and still have the audience, as well as some pretty accomplished people that were on the dais who were going to follow my talk, feel quite endeared to the points that I was making. I talked about Michael Reynolds' Earth ships and how he creates water tanks that look like a normal water tank, but actually they do not get the water from underneath. They collect the water from above. And how that technology actually operates. Declaring right at the get-go and multiple times that about what he has done and how he shows up when there are catastrophic disasters, to use the rubbish and rubble to build and rebuild homes for the communities that were destabilized. So affable is a beautiful charm that puts you at ease and enables you to accept, receive, and acknowledge the magic and the majesty that lies in your presence. The third charm is gallant. Gallant suggests spirited, dashing behavior. And it's really about these very ornate expressions of courtesy. Often it's used in the context of, women, like relating to women, men relating to women. But actually, gallant is exactly this. What does spirited mean? Spirited means you are plugged into the spirit of you. And the moment you're plugged into the spirit of you, you are connected to the spiritedness of your expression. And what are you expressing? You're always expressing the soul presence that you are. And that is what leads to this dashing behavior. It becomes an ornate expression of courtesy. Dadi Janki standing there in front of 37,000 people that I knew for a fact that were there in the room, and her walking up and down the stage, one step at a time, looking at different sections of the room. This was her ornate expression of courtesy. And all we saw was the spiritedness of her, as opposed to a 102-year-old woman walking on the stage. She was ageless and age-defying at the same time. I remember when I first met her, there was such youthfulness about her. Her voice was like really vibrant. That comes from the gallant charm being activated. And magnetically, all the resources that are called for are magnetized. How does Amma, the hugging saint? She doesn't go and pitch anything to anyone. And yet her organization, her foundation, has ongoing flow of donations that come. Donations that have no strings attached that come. And there are some donations that are for specific purposes that come. I was only a week ago maybe 10 days ago, I was in Bangalore, and we were a part of a leadership conclave. These were, we started doing these conclaves where I bring in solutionaries that are a part of the World Dignity Forum to come in and share their unique solution that's coming from Resolve. And here I invited leaders from different walks of life, from economy, from currency, from sports, water, as well as, climate, transformation of the habitat, as well as human dignity. And this particular institution that hosted the leadership summit with us in presence to it, it's led by an amazing leader. And he takes on, his philosophy and his mission is that education, health, and well-being, and nutrition is everyone's birthright. So it should be available free of charge to everyone. So he's gone ahead, and there are about 32 different schools, as well as universities as well as colleges that he's created. The first completely free medical college has been inaugurated by him. There are various activities that they do on the ground, and one of them we are very, very associated with. It's one of the first ones that we are getting out into the world as a part of our Dignify Life campaign. And it's about addressing the hidden hunger situation with children, really enabling children to have breakfast when they go to school, which is fortified with all forms of nutrition that is already integrated in it. And they currently feed 2.5 million children every year. The need is about 130 million children. So when he starts off a particular project, he sees it in its full regalia, what it is, how it is to show up, how it is to be expressed. They already have a completely free hospital. Anybody can go there. You and I can go there. There is no exchange of money. Even when you buy medication or you go for diagnostics, there is no exchange of money at all. It is 100% free. That there are doctors from different parts of the world that are present there. And he shows up with his vision, with his mission, literally walking that step, declaring it, and then mobilizing the most amazing team of people to realize this vision. And it happens. It is totally and utterly magnetic. I'll share a couple of photos of the location where we had the summit. This is their ashram where we had it. There were 2,500 people in the audience, with students as well as some serious leaders that were there. Pretty amazing that this has come about by simply taking on something as a resolve and then creating solutions that become resolutions and then activating each of these charms. And Gallant is the one that I relate to the most. There is all the volunteers are their students and their teachers who are completely ingrained in the core values of this mission of up-leveling quality of life on the planet. And they show up as such. They're totally and completely present in that way. So as a speaker that was speaking there, I felt cared for, not just professionally looked after, that was there, but I've actually felt cared for. I follow a particular regime of how I eat, so sure enough, they had their lunch banquets and all of that. But there was tremendous honoring of what it is that I required for how I was choosing to feed myself. I didn't realize at all that there was anything missing. It was completely, totally, utterly perfect. And everyone's experience, I had people from different parts of the world, some of them, everyone's connected to to their own spirit. Not everyone is religious or not everyone is spiritual in the traditional sense. So I had some people who are dignitarians that were there, not necessarily spiritual, but they were touched, moved, and inspired just as much as I was. Throughout the day, it was an electrifying experience. It was this gallant charm that was activated there. When you are plugged into your spirit, you're in your spiritedness, and you show up that way, you automatically connect to the spirit of the other person, and they feel spirited. You know, talk about validation. This is the most amazing form of validation that you can get without seeking it, by simply showing up. And automatically, you are in your most dashing presence. That behavior ornately expresses courtesy, and people feel received, seen, and they belong. So for you to work with this, look at a very specific milestone which occurred in your life, which was completely stupendous and quite surprising, pleasantly so, in terms of the impact it had. And see how gallant was showing up. Because gallant is very personal in terms of your own behavior. I got access to these points when I went back and looked at some of these most amazing leaders. And then as a result, I was able to embody these within myself as well. And I continue to work with this with humility and grace. The fourth charm is notable. Notable is, it's noteworthy. It can be a novel. It's certainly noble. It can be very deeply nourishing, very nurturing, and sort of noble-minded. Feels quite nice when you are recognized as notable, or where you've done something, or you've come across people and they are notable. It invokes all of these within you. So notable isn't just beating your chest up. It is a combination of noble, novel, nourishing, nurturing, all put together. So I recall when I applied this to myself, speaking to these 23,000 people, or how many ever there were there, it was certainly more than 23,000. I saw the nourishing and nurturing is where I focused my presentation. There were women from villages. There were business leaders that were there from Goa. There were people in the highest level of governance that were there. There were celebrities that were there. There were major influences that were there. And there were people that simply served the ashram that were there. There were little students that were going through the education system that were there. So for me to talk about de-desertification in a scientific way would simply not have landed. But I did that exercise of projecting my connection to each and every person holographically and bringing that connectedness back into my human body, and doing so consciously. I showed up talking about these concepts in such a way that my relationship to the audience was nurturing and nourishing. My communication of these concepts and these solutions, as well as some of the science behind these solutions, was as if everyone could understand it. yes, I was like a teacher, but a teacher that was sharing. And I was sharing because I felt I wasn't an expert in any of this. So if somebody explained these to me scientifically as an expert, I would simply be in reverence of them. It doesn't mean I would change my behavior in any way. I just wouldn't know how. I would just know, wow, there is this amazing person who has a solution, and that's great. But what I wanted was each one of us, when it comes to water, there is water everywhere. And many a time there isn't anything there to drink, even though there is water everywhere. So each one of us can play a role. So what is the role that you can play? So I came from that space in sharing some very complex aspects. I mean, it was about a 40-minute talk, was intended to be 10 minutes. And I'm conscious about it. I stopped at 10 minutes, and the spiritual leader of that community said, please continue. So I continued, so when I stopped, they put on the lights. Initially, when I was speaking, the lights were very, very dim, so I could only see heads. When the lights came on, I saw the expression of rivetedness that was there in the audience. They were engaged with these complex stuff that I was sharing. That was notable charm that was in action. I didn't do it consciously. I didn't know how. But I know there was nurturing and nourishing is where I came from. Because for me, it was the time for talking is done. It isn't about just simply turning the light bulbs on. Turning the light bulb so that you can take an action immediately is where I was going with this. If I wanted to drive a point across, bull force wouldn't have inspired anyone into action. So think about for yourself, when you go into this particular charm, think about where you feel or you have felt very nurtured and nourished, and where you have passed that on or passed it forward. What were you actually engaged in? What is your unique way of communicating? What is the demeanor? What is the experience of your presence when you are in this space? And that connects you to the nobility of you. Because we all are noble-minded. We sometimes don't know how to express. This particular pearl of wisdom, you will have access to it with every pearl of wisdom. The reason why each pearl is so whole and complete in itself, that if you only ever worked on that pearl, it does have the potential of creating a world that delivers to everyone. So here, in this particular pearl, anchor it. It is important to anchor it in something that's real, that you have done and experienced yourself engaging in. You may need to begin with seeing it in action somewhere else, and then looking at where you might have done it in a small way or a big way. I saw this notable play out even as a grandma, even as I'm relating to my grandchildren. I could, tell them the good qualities of the food that I'm serving them. It's so nurturing, it's so nourishing, and it does this and it does that. Doesn't mean it actually entices them to eat it. Especially now that they've got introduced to sugar and crisps and cereals and ice creams and pizzas and all that kind of stuff. So my grandson says something very interesting the other day. It was snack time. And he had been really, really good in the way he was behaving, particularly the way he looked after his brother. So I said to him, this is snack time. You can, if you want, have a lollipop because he loves it. And he says, Mynoo Oma, You can give me the lollipop, but I will not eat it now because I will use up my snack time in licking the lollipop and I won't get any good food in me. Like, wow. So like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know what led him to make this conclusion. I have never spoken to him like this, and I don't believe his parents would have. He's discerned this for himself. I think it's because of this notable charm that we have switched on every time we talk about the qualities of good food and why that's important in balancing out other stuff that you might want to enjoy. It was very deeply nourishing and nurturing, even him actually saying this. So when I see them, even when we go and eat pizzas, they first have the good food. They just do. The snacks have mostly become, raw vegetables. I'm just conscious of the time. The fifth charm is earnest. Earnest is, there's a sincerity in earnest. Sincerity, and there's a seriousness about it too, in terms of what you say, what you do, your actions and beliefs. There's a sense of importance that you give when you are operating in this state of earnest. So it's this charm of earnest that is completely natural and present in those that are magnetizing the resources that realize their resolve. There isn't a holier than thou-ness there. There is complete sincerity. Even though I was not an expert in de-desertification or the solutions I was talking about, there was sincerity in what I was saying. And there was sincerity in the way it was being communicated to connect to people from all strata of society. There's sincerity with which Dadi Janki communicated, sincerity with which Amma and her hugs land with people, because she's totally and completely present. I mean, her hugs are as electrifying now as they ever were. The first time she hugged me was in 2010. And then 7 years later, I had the privilege of another hug. It was as electrifying. By the time, I don't know how many millions of people she's hugged. And there is and people queue up, thousands queue up. And the experience is the same with everyone. There's an earnestness. This is the charm. I mean, such a straightforward word. And it's a charm that activates your magnetic personality. The sixth one is thriving. Thriving is prosperous, growing, flourishing. When you adopt a thriving strategy for anything, survival is taken care of, fear immediately dissolves, lack disappears, abundance becomes abundant. And it regenerates ongoingly. You have the experience of feeling prosperous. Growth and expansion is the result. Here, I would say, go for a lay of the land and just really identify 1 or 2 times, milestones in your life where you have delivered a thriving experience. Anchor it, and it will become a cellular remembrance of you in your magnetic personality being enacted and making a difference across the world. It may have begun with a small little project, a small little interaction where the thriving was present. Once you anchor it, you become clear about your intention, because magnetism is anchored. Your magnetic personality is what shows up every time that you presence yourself. You become a magnet for resources that you require to attract. Resources is not only money, it includes money. And it includes good health, it includes love, it includes connections. It includes locations, person, people, belongingness, a whole variety of resources. The seventh one is the seventh charm that activates your magnetic personality is impartial. Impartial introduces a sense of detachment. Detachment where you're not callous. You don't ignore anything, but you're not attached to the how. You actually remain stationed in a resolve, in your intention. Your intentionality is what drives the realization of that intention forward, not the attachment to the how that intention will be fulfilled. As a result, the intention has the freedom to be fulfilled. Impartial charm activates that aspect of your personality. So when people come in with suggestions to accelerate what you can achieve, you are automatically open to that. And 1 and 1 becomes 11, not 2. That's what this particular charm activation is all about. With that, we are exactly on time. Work with any one of these. You can take one and here I would say don't rush. Don't attempt to go through all 7 of them in a week. Take one at a time and work with it as long as you can. Just take thriving. Working with thriving for a month. How fabulous that you become a master of creating thriving strategies, thriving solutions. Whatever we've done with Aleo in the context of good food, it's become regenerative now because he's talking about it in his way that his friends understand, his little brother does. So don't rush these, take one and be amazed and awestruck at your own magnetism that will start playing out and showing up with everyone. With that, I complete up the 104th Pearl of Wisdom, and I will see you all next week. Namaste. Thank you.